Hello everyone, BFC Wells here, just giving a quick overview of the new ACE3 Medical Rewrite default settings. This video is mainly just for going over everything in case things are not ready for the Sunday company drill. First things first, there's some new items, well not new items, but there are new items that we need to be aware of. First thing is we're going to be carrying some epinephrine auto-injectors. Morphine is now important. Splints, tourniquets, basic bandages, or any of the other bandages for the other wound types. Adenosine is now an important thing to carry. Surgical kit should not be needed, but it's just here just in case. And just our testing firearm that we're going to be using for this. So first things first, if you're using the medical menu, you can press H to bring everything up. If it's on yourself, here, you can check your pulse. This is without being a medic slot. You can find a normal heart rate. You can also check your own blood pressure. Your blood pressure will say normal or low or high or this or the other. This is for if you are not a medic. If you are in the medic slot or assigned medic by Zeus, you will have detailed information in the screen. Your pulse will actually give you a readout like 60, like the general average resting heart rate's about 70 BPM. For our guys, or somewhere up to 80. It actually changes if you sprint. Blood pressure, I think it's like 120 over 80 is default. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's not the point of this. So, when it comes to taking damage, there are a couple different ways this can happen. All of your wounds will be tracked now, similar to how Ace Advanced was in the past. You will see all of them in this right part of the screen. You'll have things like avulsions, velocity wounds, scrapes, minor stabs, crush wounds, abrasions, all that stuff. You don't really have to worry about the wound type from what I've seen with the settings as it is. You can still use the basic field dressings on all the wound types and it will eventually get it. I would recommend carrying either Quick Clot or like the package bandage or the packing bandages, because just the way that it mathematically calculates whether or not it's successful on it. So the new thing with if you're using the old style, this is now default. You will have your basic triage card here along with your readout of your body screen as if you're in the medical menu. I personally don't use this, but I will try to give examples for this. It will be hard because I'll have to frag myself. So when it comes to treating yourself, let's see here. Give me just a moment. I need to just grab a grenade. Let's see. Note, this information is only relevant until our settings get reconfigured. So I'm going to grab a couple frags. A couple incendiaries. Alright. So, first things first, just for a small wound, I'm going to toss this. Stand by. I'm going to approach this a certain way. Alright, that should be good. Alright, so I have been damaged. There's blood on the ground. If I am using the previous medical menu, there are new colors in this to determine the severity of wounds. It is no longer white, yellow, and red. I believe it is now white, this kind of off yellow, yellow, into orange, into dark orange, into red, into dark red. Like, I think it actually does do pink. I haven't checked. This is kind of how you look at a glance if you're, like, screwed up or not. So as you can see, on the left side, you'll have minor scrape, small cut, all that stuff. This is the same as if you're doing it in the medical menu. For the purpose of this, I'm going to be doing this in the medical menu. So first things first, if you are able to get out of combat, like if it's just a random shot or whatnot, you can just come right into it. You don't have to worry about tourniquets. You can just apply your field dressings, like we did before, which field dressings are just the regular bandage. So you can just apply that. Same. Sometimes it won't work, sometimes, well, not won't work, but sometimes you'll need more than one bandage to cover the wound correctly. Alright, so now we're here. So now we're fully bandaged, right? Are we done? No. So there are some things that we can actually glean off of this screen right here, or in the self-interact menu. We can actually see small partial cut, partial minor scrape. This stuff is what damage you actually treated, and it is directly related to what hit you. So something like this Glock will do small velocity wounds and like cuts and whatnot. Something like the 7.62s from the AKs or 5.56 will give you medium velocity wounds, and that's Sorry about that, mic problem. Um, so you can actually determine what it is that hit you more or less. You can tell if it's a frag grenade. You'll have interior bleeding or this or the other, but that's different. So the next thing is I might get an effect on this. Okay, so we still have a normal heart rate. So I didn't take enough damage to actually cause issues with my heart rate or my blood pressure. I did lose some blood. That is a good thing to note. You want to keep track of your blood. But I was in pain, and as you can actually see, the pain wore off over time. This is a new thing. With the new system, pain will wear off over time if it's not too severe or if you have stabilized the wound. Um, I'm not sure about like how long it generally takes, but that was what, a minute, minute and a half just for some light damage. So, kind of use that as a baseline. Now here comes the interesting stuff. You can no longer spam morphines for right now until we get this stuff handled. So what we're going to see, I'm going to hit one morphine as if I were in pain. It doesn't matter if you're in pain or not. This effect is completely different. Now we're going to give it a minute to affect us. If you come to the triage card, you'll see all of your medications that have been applied to you. And you'll get how long it's been since they were applied. This stuff is very, very important. So now, let's see here. So we're gonna find our heart rate, still normal. Low blood pressure, so check this out. So this morphine is actually causing things with our blood pressure right now. Low blood pressure and high blood pressure are not good. And what we'll see, I will probably die if I do this, but so the first morphine, you're fine. You can move around, you'll have low blood pressure. If you're still bleeding, you might fall unconscious, but it's not that bad. I haven't seen it to where one morphine to damage will really affect it too bad. But it can. That is how the mod works. But now what we're going to do is we're now going to hit a second morphine way too quickly. So we have the one morphine in our system. It's still in our bloodstream. We're going to hit another morphine. This is how you overdose on morphine. So stand by. We're going to just take a listen. Ah, shit. We should start hearing. I might have waited too long. Oh. And there it is. So what you had just heard was you heard a very faint heartbeat and it started to slow down. That was me falling unconscious from a morphine overdose. What you also witnessed is the new ragdolling system. This is, I believe, an integration of Dewako's Ace Ragdoll mod into the base mod itself. So you will actually no longer just see people fall straight into the unconscious state. Ooh, actually, are we going to wake up? Nope. Okay, so that's a different thing. There's now... Yep, okay, so that is that. I just overdosed on morphine. Awesome. So how do you counteract this? Main thing that you need to control your blood pressure and your heart rate. Your blood pressure and your heart rate are linked to each other, but not, in too drastic of a way. So what we can do is if we need to, we can hit adenosine as an alternate for dropping. So if we need to hit epinephrine a couple times to get our heart rate back up, and we end up going too high, and you hear the heartbeat as something more like there, you'll hit adenosine, not morphine. Morphine's too strong. Adenosine will bring you back down, not as intensely as morphine does. So the other thing that is now new is that treating other people is now different. You treat other people faster than you treat yourself generally because you don't have to like fiddle with yourself. For this example, actually this is actually a good time to show the new damage models. So um, before, if you took damage to the arms, legs, torso, head, they all affected the same base hit point system. It still kind of does, but now it's got they've now been separated in an interesting way. So fatal wounds, by default, fatal wounds which are high velocity shots to the torso or to the head will now instantly or have a higher chance of instantly killing. It's not always guaranteed, but it is quite possible. It is in proportion to the caliber and how you would be hit. Like, theoretically, you can get hit in the skull and the bullet will ricochet off your skull and exit. But and that's kind of integrated. So we're just going to take a little test here on myself in someone else's body. So, boom, done, nothing. He's out. That's it. It's over. We're going to check the pulse. There's no pulse. Is he responsive? Gonna take a wild guess. No. So things like this, we could try to do CPR. Let's actually see if this works. Oh, that's the new thing. There's a new CPR animation, which is pretty good. Let's see. Will this work? Let's see. Did it work? No. So that's just a death, right? So that makes sense. Getting shot in the head. Yep, that's gonna do you in. But check this out. So now we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so he's now fallen, right? So see how he is now fallen into the unconscious animation? This is going to be interesting. What we're going to do, we are going to apply tourniquets real quick to stop the bleeding. This is how, like, if you get shredded by an MG or something like that, this is how you're going to do this. First step, apply your tourniquets. This is going to stop the bleeding, for a little while. It starts inflicting pain around 3 to 5 minutes into having the tourniquet applied, so you need to do this in, a certain amount of time. You'll notice there's now a bone break icon. Oh shit, lost a fatal amount of blood. So I actually cannot, let's see, so I'm going to try to do this. I actually don't have the medic permission, so I can't apply a blood bag. But we will do our best here to stabilize him. Oh, no, he died. Alright, so even though he died, what we would have had to do is we would have had to hook him up to the IV immediately to try to stabilize his blood pressure and whatnot. But since we missed it, I'm not going to worry about it. So this is just going to be more of showing how the new splint system works. So you'll see there are broken bones. Bones can break from velocity wounds and this and the other. This will cause you to limp if it is on your leg, and it will cause your aim to sway heavily if it's in your arm. I don't think you can get a broken skull or whatnot, but I haven't seen it yet, I should say. So what you would just do for this is you would just come to here, you would go to bandages and fractures, and you would apply the splint. Boom, splint's done. You would then continue with your field dressings. And assuming your guy isn't dead, unlike this guy, okay, so that now it's a little bit lighter because I'm not using the correct bandage type. And boom, it's starting to lighten up and whatnot. That's great, but just for the interest of time, so let's assume these are fine. You would then remove your tourniquets once you have the bleeding stopped. You can keep a fractured bone without bleeding. The only problem is if you leave a fractured bone, it will inflict heavy amounts of pain on the patient. I can try to do this. Let's see. How am I going to do this? Ooh, I've got a plan, guys.
Ready.
And let's see what that did. I hear a crunch, so I don't think it did it. No. There's actually a new sound, by the way. You'll actually hear the bone breaking. Let's try it again. Alright, there it is. So, first things first, we're going to apply the splint. Notice how it's slower on yourself. Boom. Technically I would have applied the tourniquet, but it's not that bad of damage, so what you can do, you can actually, slow it down. Now, one of the other things I've noticed as you're witnessing this, the more pain you are in, the longer it takes for you to perform the medical action. So it would be, a good idea to... Oh, hold on, I might actually pass out. Let's see if I'm going to pass out. Because I should have probably hit morphine first. Alright, so hold on. We're going to drop our heart rate with some morphine. Because we're going into shock. So hold on. Alright, yeah, so I fell unconscious. So, interesting thing, color faded away. Heart rate increased. I should have hit the morphine earlier. So now it's about a 5% chance every 15 seconds, I think, to get back up. Which I'm probably not going to because I wasn't stabilized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over this guy. Oh, this is actually a good thing to show this. So now, yeah, I died. So one other thing that's on by default, you will use if you're coming up to someone to use like medical stuff on them, you will use items from their inventory first and then your inventory. That's just kind of like a quality of life thing to, if they have it, you're going to use theirs. So yeah. Let's see. And then one last quick thing. It's very difficult to get people to come out of unconscious right now, so I wouldn't really suggest doing it. I'd say the main thing is keeping them from going into unconsciousness. The main reason for that, the main reason for that is this setting right, right here, this one. So unconscious wake up chance is, this is without having, um, epinephrine or whatnot. But every 15 seconds or so, it's going to check to see if you're going to wake up, naturally, depending on if you're stable. It runs it, I think it's a function of 3 different or 4 different variables. Um, Actually, I'm just going to scroll through this real quick so you can see all of the damages. You can see this, in game naturally. So this is just kind of like overall player health factor. Medic AI just lets the AI do things themselves. Your blood lifetime. I think what this is related to the blood objects on the floor here. I think that's how long those last on the ground. The only settings that you can change are these ones down here. Mine is currently white flashing. That's the base one. So the old pain effect was this one. Chromatic aberration is like colors go weird. Um, and there's pulsing blur. Pulsing blur is interesting. I was using that earlier, which I'm going to just set that there. This enable medical actions. This is whether or not you're using the radial or 3D. Self actions. So this is the self interaction menu or the control Windows key. Enable medical menu. Blah blah blah. Litter. This is all server side stuff. Okay, so this is the other interesting one. Um, this is the states options. Controls whether a player can receive fatal injuries. Significant damage to the head or body. So the way that it's set naturally is that if I am unconscious, so if I was unconscious there and you came up and you just came up to me and just dome me like that, that would kill me. Naturally, that's what it would do. Shoot, I keep going into regular controls. The other, so same thing with AI. It's interesting, especially with these controls. So basically, okay, so here's the brief. You can get shot in the head while you're unconscious, right? And that'll just instantly kill you. This can be set to only in cardiac arrest, so that means that if you were to get shot in the head, you would fall into cardiac arrest instead of instantly dying and going to respawn. Same thing with AI. AI unconsciousness is linked to this. It determines whether or not the AI can fall unconscious and medic each other. So this is a setting that I think needs to be changed by default, the cardiac arrest time. Um, this determines, how long it takes to die from going into cardiac arrest. This includes when you are overdosed on morphine. So when I was laying there overdosed on morphine, my actual heartbeat stopped, as you heard. I think that needs to get pumped up to about a minute and a half or so, but by default it's 30 seconds. The bleeding coefficients and whatnot, this is all stuff for determining how fast things happen. Advanced diagnosis, this is whether or not, this is if you're a medic, you get the advanced numbers. Advanced bandages is for having things outside of the generic bandage. I think we're going to turn this off, most likely. Wound reopening, that's if you get shot again or if you're sprinting, there's a chance for you to reopen a wound. That will likely stay off once, we do it. Clearing trauma after bandage, this I think needs to be on. This is how I think it was before. Advanced medication, which is adenosine and atropine. Atropine was removed, ignore that. But yeah, this allows like the overdosing and whatnot. I'm pretty sure. Unneeded self IV transfusion. This is great for if you're a medic or if the medic thing gets moved around and everyone can do IV infusions. You can do it to yourself. So you can basically hook yourself up to an IV if you're a medic, so you can guarantee that you won't fall unconscious. Shared equipment. This is the thing I talked about earlier. Server side, allow epi for everyone, epinephrine everywhere. Okay, personal aid kits required by medics. I think that these naturally get used up, or not used up, but I think they get turned into the base things right now. I'm not sure. We might see that later. Surgical kit is tied to medics at medical facilities right now. I don't think we're gonna need to worry about that. Um, let's see. Self-stitching. Don't think unless HQ decides to do things with the advanced wound system, which I don't think they will. That's the only time when self-stitching is needed. CPR success chance, 40%. This just means that every time you do CPR, um, it's going to roll a 40% chance to see whether or not you bring the heartbeat back. If the heartbeat is already there, so if you're unconscious and you're performing CPR, what you're doing is you're extending the cardiac arrest time. So yeah, and then holster. This needs to stay disabled. This is just an irritating setting. What this does is that if you need to put your gun in your holster before you can do any sort of medical settings, and that about ties it up. That's the basics right now. Sorry for the tone and whatnot and the rambling and whatnot. So if you have any questions, just shoot PMs and whatnot. Assuming that this doesn't get this video is also mainly for if we don't get this situated before company drills or the first week of drills back. Alright, this is BBC Wells, signing out.